Do we need any clarification on who's in attendance?
Sure, why not? Whoop. Dave just disappeared. Huh. He is reconnecting. Are you there, Mr. Hoffman? You might be on mute, Dave, if you can hear me.
Can you hear me now, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Let me try to get video.
All right.
So I get all these pop-ups announcing that the meeting's going live and everything. So I tried to get rid of it, and that's when I got disconnected.
That's okay.
So we're in agreement. The meeting's called to order right now.
Correct. It's 7:04, I believe you said.
In attendance is myself, Jeff Eastburn, Mark Harris, Chuck Phillips, Dawn Dowling, John Gontow. Kathy, that would be Matt Going. Yes?
I would say yes.
Okay, and Zach Elwin. All right. It looks like Matt, there you are. Great. First order of business is any public comment? Being none, I think our next order of business is approval of the previous minutes. Let me try to get December 2nd, 2021. It was a joint meeting between the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. Did enough of us have a chance to go through the minutes?
I went through them.
I liked how I was called to the principal's office at the end of the meeting. Any comments, corrections, additions, deletions? Anybody try to say anything that might be on mute?
I'm good if everyone else is. I think John Gontars is on mute.
Look good to me.
Yeah, it looks fine to me. This is Chuck.
Okay, do I have a motion for approval?
I can make a motion to approve if you want.
I can second.
Motion by John, second by Mark. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None. Next order of business is organization of the Planning Commission. First would be nominations for chairman. I'll make the comment that I'm more than happy if anybody else wants to be chairman.
I'm going to nominate Dave Hoffman as chairman.
I second that.
You'll get me later, dude.
Yeah. I get, is there any comments or?
Comments are, you do a fantastic job.
Yes, and that's the only time I'll hear it is right now. All in favor of Dave Hoffman for chairperson?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. All right, thank you. Vice chair.
I nominate Mark Harris.
And do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other nominees or comments? All in favor for Mark as vice chair, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
No opposed. I think everybody that was voted said aye. And finally, nominations for secretary.
I nominate John.
May I have a second?
Yes.
Second.
I think I'm supposed to ask if people accept them, but I think we'll, in a small quorum like this, we'll make that assumption. All in favor for John for secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There's no opposed. All right. Let's shuffle it up a little bit, right? Next order of business is the Longwood Tour. Jeff, if you could just remind me who we met with when we were out there.
We met with Anne Marie Crossan.
That assumption. All in favor for John for secretary, say aye.
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 I don't know if you heard me, Anne Marie Crossan, my screen froze.
Yeah, we were just getting a replay. We nominated John twice.
Oh,
And voted him twice. So when we met, there was a group of us. I believe I might have been the only commissioner, but many of the supervisors were there, and Jeff. A very informative tour and information. I think we came away that we felt like we really could have a meaningful ordinance that didn't require as much as detail as we may have had in there right now. And some of the interesting things is, at least feel free, Dawn or Jeff, to comment. Correct me if your opinion was different of the tour. We got a really good sense that they can be installed as pervious with proper ground management, ground cover management. It was interesting in the history of that solar field. I think they've only replaced 1 or 2 panels, and it was really due to wind. I don't remember them saying that they had to replace any cracked or that there was anything that was damaged from any hail that we may have had since they were installed.
correct, from wind lift.
Right, so the one that they had to replace was from wind lift. They are installed with the I-beams are pounded into the ground. And the electric and everything is underground, similar to what we were asking for. But as far as like what I came away with that is that there's more than just helical anchors that can be used adequately and still allow for the land to be restored to its previous state. Anne Marie was not with Longwood when they were installed. She was with the U of D at the time. But she did have pretty good historical information for us in that the land had very little prep. So that is the natural contour of the land where the panels were placed. And that they used, they specified that the ground, I think they used 3 different meadow grasses, depending on whether they wanted the meadow grass to be under the panels, more out in the open. But obviously, as we know, with most ground cover, they've pretty much mixed over the years. But you really, at least to my eye, you couldn't tell where one species of grass started or ended.
Right.
They do use herbicide around posts. So that's something we definitely want to consider in our ordinance, where I think right now in the draft form, it precludes using herbicides.
Are the down sports in footers, or are they just in the ground by themselves?
No, they're pounded.
No concrete.
No concrete, right?
All right, cool.
And there's a Longwood does not own the facilities, or there is a third party between Longwood and Pico. The agreement is for I think it's 25 years, and then their agreement is it's not truly like a lease purchase, but they can take it over at the then market value. I'm just sharing the information, not that we would get into that in our ordinance necessarily. Correct me, Don or Jeff, but after the life of the solar arrays, I think Longwood is responsible for removing it. I don't think the way they crafted it, that the vendor was going to remove it.
That's my understanding.
That's my recollection too, because I was there a few years ago.
Okay.
It was Longwood property and Longwood disposes of it.
Interestingly, right now, with Anne Marie's knowledge, it's still cheaper to dispose of than to recycle, even though there is increasing interest in recycling. The cost benefit's not there yet. So most that are decommissioning at this point are probably disposing.
I'm assuming we're just talking about the panels themselves, because all that superstructure below it could just be, it's steel. It just gets, recycled easily from that.
Yeah, we're talking about
Panels.
the panels.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're hoping that, the next round that they would still be able to use those posts and not have to take those out, still use those as ground mounts. Now you can see on the screen, I had sent some questions, and then the answers are in red and blue from Longwood, and then their vendor. I know one of the things that Mr. Gontar's had a concern about was the cadmium.
Well, cadmium is one of them. Each one of them has different heavy metals. Cadmium is one of them.
No, but you can see the answer that they had given, because I knew that was a concern to John.
Well, no, it's just not that.
Highlighted here.
There's a whole range of metals which are in there besides cadmium. Each one has its own proprietary methodology of getting solar power, and all of them have issues at end of life. So we could probably go through each one and go through what's in them, and we'll find something in there that's a problem. Okay. Cadmium is a common one, though. Well, you want to differentiate between cadmium containing panels versus non-cadmium?
No, I just thought I would ask that question and get an answer for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, there's a whole range of components that go into them, and the newer ones have even different metals, and I just haven't kept up with that, but all of them have some issues either with recycling or disposal. So it's a changing scenery, and as the changes go on, we'll have to keep track of that.
Well, do we want to maybe think about putting some verbiage in the ordinance that indicates that the landowner is responsible for any contamination that occurs.
It would be good to have somebody responsible, yes, because otherwise the township will be responsible in the end.
I mean, maybe that's the section we need to add is let's not worry about whether it's recyclable or not, because we won't know. I mean, there's no way to forecast what's going to happen in
That's
25 years as far as recycling.
Yes,
Right.
if we put a general term like that in, that might work.
I guess when we've considered putting things like that in ordinances in the past, and if Jeff Vogel or previous officer, code officer is like, well, how do I enforce that? Or, so we just want to make sure we're just not throwing stuff in there that is either very difficult to enforce or
So the enforcement would happen in 25 years. If all our water runoff is monitored downstream, and then they investigate and they come back and they find the culprit, similar to a manufacturing plant that's putting stuff into the water. I'm thinking that's the way that it would be. And I'm thinking 25 years from now, it's going to be even more rigorously evaluated. So it probably zoning officer probably would never get involved.
Well, Jeff, you mentioned that Longwood had to replace a panel or two because of wind damage, correct?
yeah, it was lifted.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
don't think the panel actually cracked, or as best I understood it.
Okay, but I guess the issue is if a panel's intact, then there's not likely a chance that we're going to have any sort of water contamination, because the glass is protecting it and the seals are protecting it. It's really only if we have an incident that leads to the panels being destroyed. We haven't had baseball-sized hailstorms out here in my recollection, but I know when I lived in Iowa, we used to have baseball-sized hail that dented cars. So it really depends upon what happens to the panels, and if the panels get destroyed, then who is the one who identifies that it's been destroyed? Is it the homeowner or the landowner? And then what really has to be done is either the panels are covered with blue tarp or whatever, so the water isn't getting into them and leaching through them, or they get replaced. I mean, those are probably the biggest issues, from the way I see it. So if you have an intact panel on a roof or on a field or whatever, they're fine. But if we don't have an intact panel, who's looking out for that? I guess it would be incumbent on the owner, whether it be the landowner or the homeowner. I don't know if it's up to the township to do that.
Right. And that's where I came away with this meeting, and I think where we're all headed is, and if we say that landowner is responsible for contamination, it's up to them to negotiate a good agreement with the vendor and who's installing these systems. I don't think the township should be there necessarily, and I know this isn't being advocated, but we don't want to write an ordinance where the township's involved in the agreements between the landowner and the vendor. And
I agree with that.
So John, your concern actually, and I'm not disagreeing, I kind of agree. Day one, you have a concern that, if there's damage to a panel, that it could cause problems. Not 25 years necessarily. It's not really about at the end of its life, but all through its life, right?
Agreed. And one
Okay.
panel isn't an issue. It's a matter of if a lot of panels get damaged, then you have an issue. If you have, 50 panels and one gets damaged, you're not going to see that as far as any sort of contamination issue. So yeah, I think it's an issue of from day one. There's the landowner has to be aware of the condition of his panels. Now, it doesn't mean he looks at them every day, but because that's not practical. But if you have one heck of a storm and he sees pieces of glass from his solar panels on the ground, then he's got to do something about that. But that should be incumbent on him, not on us.
I think that this also needs to cover all of the solar panels, not just the larger ones, the larger farms, fields.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, at least on this system, I mean, they can pretty much, they do visual inspection, but they almost don't need to because they can monitor the output of each one.
Of
And
each
so
panel.
obviously if they're seeing a downturn or something, they're gonna figure out why that's going on.
They'd probably see a report that it would report back it was a dead panel.
Right. I guess with residential systems, it's a lot easier to do visual inspection because they're smaller. But I'm not aware whether they have the same capabilities of detecting whether each panel, I'm sure they do, but whether they are utilized in every residential situation. So, what we didn't talk about because it wasn't an official meeting, it was a field trip, is what do we want to do with this draft that we have? Have those that drafted it, because I think the supervisors that drafted it, it would be helpful if Dave and maybe Dawn knows. I think they were there, and whether they want to go back and redraft it or with the information that we gained, Jeff. Have you had any discussions with the supervisors?
I have not about that. I figured this would be something that we would pick up again in February, along with the charter school. But the point was try to get useful information out of Longwood and include it if the planning commission so desired.
I mean, maybe we've had our discussions, so maybe, I don't know if we don't typically do a report to them, but
No, but they can look at the video if they want.
yeah, so they've heard our comments. I don't even know if they're going to come back to us again.
Well, a main comment that will come out of the minutes will likely be that as long as the panel is intact, there's no issues. If the panel is end of life or it gets destroyed for some reason during its life, then it's really up to the homeowner or the landowner to take care of it. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that's going to come out of the minutes, isn't it?
The other item is whether or not it's pervious or impervious.
Yeah, I almost think to me, it's more pervious than impervious, but that's my view.
I don't know. I think the field trip kind of showed that it's pervious.
I think the field trip and plus where the state is going with it, I think we'd have a tough time. I'm in favor of it being pervious myself, but I think, and I don't hear a strong enough voice the other way, other than maybe Pete, and not discrediting that, but I think we'd have a tough time supporting an ordinance that said they were impervious.
The only place that it could be an issue is if we get into a steep slope issue. And already in steep slope, we have a number of issues. And if we put a solar cells on those things, it kind of aggravates that situation, I think, a little bit. But I'm not a hydrologist, so I can't say that for sure. But that'd be my only place that I would think there could be an issue. You follow me?
Yeah, steep slopes would tend to degrade at a rate that's faster than the
Right.
yeah. And then a lot of that's going to depend on when it rains. I mean, in the springtime here, try to stop something from growing. I mean, really, I mean, that's the one thing we're definitely blessed with. Everything grows around here.
Yes. So I agree. I think the thing is pervious from my perspective, and I think we should look at it that way. Pete?
I think we manage steep slopes with the ground cover.
Yep.
Making sure that we word that correctly. So.
Yeah, and I don't even know that they want to be on a steep slope because, yeah, it's difficult.
I know. I agree.
Same reason that farms don't want to be on steep slopes. They still got to get around these panels and all that stuff, and it just makes it difficult.
Right. I think from a practical sense, we don't have many clear steep slopes. And I don't think anybody wants to be clearing trees to put in solar panels.
I had a solar company come out here and I had to remove 1.5 acres of trees to put the panels in. And I says, I don't think so. That was their view.
So any other discussion for us right now, guys?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
So you want this to come back at the February Planning Commission meeting, correct?
I don't think we can say, I mean, we're more than willing to review a revised draft in February or when it is available.
Okay. Why don't we do that then?
Yeah.
Because Pete will more than likely be here anyway for the charter school plans.
Right. Then the last thing on the agenda is just the timing, I guess, of the comprehensive plan. I guess it's more informative, telling us what is the proposed timing, and I guess it would be the Board of Supervisors that when they review that timeline says that they think it's reasonable.
I think we see it first.
We see the comprehensive plan, but the what's in our agenda was just a proposed timeline.
I don't think that I don't think the supervisors are going to change that timeline. I think that is the timeline.
Yeah. I guess we're both saying, what are we saying right here? Did we all reviewed it?
I mean, I read through it. It's coming to us when they're planning it. I think they're just giving us a heads up that this is what goes on. And maybe
it's,
also talking about the 45 days. Yeah, so if we make changes, then it goes 45 days. And if we make more changes, it goes another 45 days. I think they're trying to warn us about that.
I would suspect it's going to come before you probably at the March Planning Commission meeting. That's what it was talked about.
Okay, so we gotta make sure we wrap up the charter in February.
Yep. And then as soon as we get a draft of it, my intention is to share it with the Planning Commission of the comprehensive plan.
And we're supposed to see that on the 18th, correct, Jeff? Of this month?
I'm hoping. I haven't gotten it yet, but my intention is to turn it around when the day that I get it.
Okay, yeah, it says it up at the top. Draft comprehensive plan document, full plan distributed to comprehensive plan task force on or about January 18th. Or do you not plan on putting that out until the comprehensive plan task force approves it?
What I would like to do, and I see Kathy going there, what I would like to do when we get it is to put it up on the website as a draft and for the public before the meeting. That's what I would like, unless Kathy tells me otherwise.
That's exactly what well, it says Matt going, but it's Kathy. I didn't want to interrupt here. So thanks for the opening, Jeff. No, I agree with you. Our intent is that as soon as that draft is available from the county, that the comprehensive plan task force gets it, and the planning commission, because we don't want you guys to be beholden to that 45 days. So this would give you more than the 45 days to make comments. And we'd even talked, Jeff, at the last meeting, that if people wanted physical copies, I know there's a few members on the task force who want physical copies, that physical copies could be made available to you as well to collect your comments.
Absolutely.
Yep. I have a question. I know we had envisioned that Mark Thompson also needs to have a speaking role in all of this, and that he would guide the planning commission and the board of supervisors about certain pieces of how to do this. I think is he away this week? Is that why he's not, wasn't he supposed to be coming to this meeting, or am I misremembering that?
No, he's, as I remember, Kathy, he's coming to the comprehensive plan meeting on the
Okay.
25th.
Okay, because yeah, okay.
And I have sent him the draft agenda that I'd sent everyone again today, and did include him in on the Zoom invitation as well.
Okay, because I know a piece of it, but so we'll make sure then from the comprehensive plan task force, we'll make sure to, through Jeff, send information back to the planning commission. Because I think Mark was going to just provide, the solicitor has a role in all of this as well, and it as a bridge between the planning commission and the board. Remind me, Jeff, and Chuck, the planning commission, I think, is the party that presents the comprehensive plan to the board of supervisors. It's not the comprehensive plan task force that sends it to the board of supervisors. It's the planning commission.
I believe we would say, yes, we would make a recommendation that the comprehensive plan be reviewed and approved by the supervisors. I believe that's the process.
Yeah, and when you say we, Chuck, you mean as the planning commission, not
Yes,
as the.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That was my understanding. So it's a 3 handoff here. It's the task force to the planning commission, and then the planning commission to the board of supervisors. And Mark Thompson has a role in that, I believe, when it's sitting with the planning commission, because there has to be some advertising. There's public communication that also accompanies this review.
All right, good.
Correct.
Thank you, Kathy.
Correct.
Yes. We'll make sure that the planning commission's aware of any of what Mark had to say at the task force. I couldn't remember if he was coming to this meeting or that meeting. Thanks.
Shouldn't we request him to come to the March?
Yes, he should. That's why I think I'm stumbling on the steps here, because I know he has to be with you guys at some point. So it probably is the March meeting.
I would think so as well.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, any public comment? Being none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we'll adjourn at